Do you want me to start the recording or is it recording?
It's recording. Started recording.
Okay, would you like me to start?
Yes, that's great.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here for this second meeting of our Santa Cruz County Green Schools Working Group. And I'm Debbie Bodenheimer, the Associate Superintendent at the Santa Cruz County Office of Education. And I'm so impressed to see all of you here, especially our superintendents. I know how incredibly crazy busy things are right now for you, dealing with all the COVID policies. And it's nice to see our CNI people here and teachers and students. So we just really appreciate your time to spend on this extremely important initiative, even though we know that you're busy and you're being pulled in 800,000 different directions. So on behalf of our team, I just want to thank you for being here. I will be going over the purpose of the day and then turning it over to Amity, but I will mention the awesome COE team who's helping out today with Sophia, the behind the scenes tech guru. And we also have Heather, our science coordinator, helping out, and Amity. Who else am I forgetting? I know we have a number of our team members here who are contributing to this group.
Yep, they're the main ones helping, and so Stephanie is and Angela are both here too.
And as Amity mentioned earlier, we will be recording this. We know it's not the same to view the recording as in person. However, it will be recorded and sent out. And Heather has been putting the slide deck and the information in the chat so you can access that. So Sophia, if you'd like to go ahead and move to the next slide. Thank you. So just really quickly, the purpose of this group is to support our districts in Santa Cruz County to integrate sustainability practices, to support student engagement, environmental and community health, curriculum and instruction, and greening of facilities. And I know Amity has been working so hard on this with all of you. And I really, again, appreciate everyone's efforts on this. It's so important, not only for our planet and our environment, but also for student social emotional wellness and engagement. So the outcomes of this group: to identify and prioritize actions across the pillars, capture and share current green schools progress and initiatives across the county, and to map to support resources. So lots of time to really share and integrate resources with each other. Increase awareness of districts' green schools current work and also planning for future work. And then thinking ahead, identifying advocates who can support future action plans and potential green ribbon schools applications coming up in fall 2022. So that is the purpose and the outcomes. And I will now turn it over to Amity Sandage, our environmental literacy coordinator, to lead us in our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Debbie, for that lovely welcome. Once again, I would like to open with our local land acknowledgement. The land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Awaswa-speaking Weepi tribe. The Amamutsan tribal band, comprised of the descendants of indigenous people taken to missions Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma. And I wanted to bring in the voice of the chairman of the Amamutsan tribal band to this group because Youth for Environmental Action met last week with Chairman Lopez. He generously shared his time and knowledge with the students as they're planning a garden project that they're working on. And I was struck by what he said was more important than anything else. He said, more important than anything else is to maintain and restore sacredness to the land from the perspective of the Amamutsan tribal band. So I wanted to use this opportunity to bring his voice to you. And I also am excited to bring voices of our students to you. Last time we had that video where they talked about why green schools were important to them. And today we're going to have them open our circle of community. So if you want to go to the next slide, Each week when Youth for Environmental Action meets, we have a tradition of one student opening the circle, and on Zoom it's a virtual circle, by sharing a poem, a quote, a story, or any offering that brings our focus together as a community. And over the past month and a half, there were these 3 students whose quotes really resonated with our theme for this meeting, the health of the environment and our community. And so I invited these 3 students to come and share today, Avonlea, Emily, and Zahir, and bring the opener that they did with Youth for Environmental Action, share it and share why that quote, why they chose it for Youth for Environmental Action, and then also how they see it connected to environmental health and community health. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Avonlea. And you can go to the next slide, Sophia.
Hello, my name is Avonlea and I go to San Lorenzo Valley High School. My quote is, "We have to recognize that every breath of air we take, every mouthful of food we take comes from the natural world. And if we damage the natural world, we damage ourselves. We are one coherent ecosystem. It's not just a question of beauty or interest or wonder. The essential ingredient of human life is a healthy planet. We are in danger of wrecking that," by David Attenborough. And this quote made me think about the symbiotic relationship between humans, plants, and animals, which we often neglect in hopes of short-term gain. I knew the students at YA would agree that with the damaged environment, the quality of our lives would be dramatically impacted, which is why I shared it with them. Attenborough's quote connects to the theme of environmental and community health because it stresses the urgency of caring for the longevity of our environment so that it may support a healthy community instead of an unsustainable one. Thank you.
Thank you, Avonlea. We'll move on to Zahir's quote. Zahir, are you having trouble with your sound? We're not hearing you. Uh-oh. Was that Zahir coming back in? He sometimes drops out of Zoom. Are you here, Zahir?
I see him on the list.
Oh. Oh, well, I'm afraid we're not hearing you, but you can read the quote that Zahir shared with Youth for Environmental Action. If we want our children to flourish, to become truly empowered, we must first allow them to love the earth before asking them to save it. David Sable. And I'm sorry that Zahir's not able to share why he chose that quote and make the connections to that theme. But we'll go on to Emily's quote and then invite you all to share your thoughts and gratitude back to the students after that.
Hi, my name is Emily and I go to Seva High School. My poem is entitled "The Tree Agreement" by Elise Passion. The neighbor calls the Siberian elm a weed tree, demands we hack it down, says the leaves overwhelm his property, the square backyard. He's collar and tie, a weed tree. Branches screen buildings, subway tracks, his patch of yard. We disagree. Claim back the sap, heartwood, wild bark. He declares the tree hazardous. We shelter under leaf hoard, crossway for squirrels, branch house for sparrows, jays. The balcony soaks up the shade. Chatter song drowns out cars below. Sun branches down, leaves overwhelm. The tree will stay. We tell him no. Root deep through pavement, elm. Originally, I chose to share this poem to as a sort of appreciation, to thank everyone in our group for invoking the the needed change within our community. Speaking your mind isn't always the easiest thing to do. And in this poem, the neighbor, that's exactly what he does when he refuses to cut the tree down after he sees all of its benefits. I believe everyone in YEA has that power because we have grown up around nature and have developed the bond that pushes us to want to protect it. So with regards to environmental and community health, I would say that the first step is instilling that love for our earth in places like school so that people will be motivated to fight for it. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing those beautiful quotes and poems, and also your incredible interpretations of them. Please I want to invite the whole group to offer any responses, thoughts, comments, or appreciations. And you can unmute and say it out loud too. You can say it in the chat.
So
Beautiful choices.
Yeah, this is Dr. Rodriguez. So I'm the superintendent of PVUSD, and I just wanted to say thank you to the students. We love to hear your voice, and we do most of this advocacy work for you and the generations to come. So thanks for being here and sharing your voice.
This is Marianne from Live Oak, and we didn't get to hear the second quote, but it made me think about our students who are like worried about global warming and all of these things, but really like just kind of going back and creating that love for Earth, right? Kind of starting there about why this is important. That quote really resonated with me.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Thank you, Marianne, for sharing. And there's wonderful things in the chat as well. Thank you, everyone, for contributing to the conversation.
The slide deck that's shared inside the chat is not today's slide deck.
Oh, no.
It's the January 11th deck.
Oh,
Just
my
an
goodness.
FYI.
Thank you.
David Attenborough is my favorite, so I just want to compliment the person that chose that. And I believe he really gives us the why behind our work, because we are connected to everything.
Okay, that one should work. I hope that is the correct deck. And thank you so much for sharing that resonated with you too. If we can go on to the next slide, I wanted to connect back to the why, especially in relation to our theme for today. You heard in those offerings from the students how the health and the environment, health of the environment is fundamental to our own health. And if you go to the next slide, what it really made me think of is how these pieces they were sharing were really illustrating different stages of the development of an environmental identity. So some of you may have heard me talk of this research before, but I wanted to bring it up again because it connected so much with their poems. We all have different identities connected to our work identity, our family, our culture. An environmental identity is a part of the research and is about how much a person's sense of self is of their self being a part of the natural world versus separate from it. And a strong environmental identity, not surprisingly, correlates to a high commitment to environmental stewardship. And the research shows it developing along this spectrum, where the first phase that somebody goes through is developing just a sense of trust and safety in nature, that they get those exposures to nature with a trusted mentor or adult or friend, and that makes them feel safe enough to then move into the second phase where they go and independently explore using their own senses and discover things about that world and the wonder of it. And Zahir's quote connected so much to those two first phases because they're really what prepare people for then going into the third phase where they're learning about all the connections between natural systems and human systems and their interdependence, and the things that you can't necessarily learn just from your own senses, where school often comes in and we learn about ecosystems. And that quote from David Attenborough really spoke directly to the tie between health and the environment and our health, and how they can't be separated. And then that final phase of environmental action is when a person then is equipped with the knowledge and this motivation because of their caring, just like Emily said so eloquently, that the result is this fierce stewardship that helps people take lifelong action. And so kids can definitely be asked to do that phase 3 and 4, but if they haven't had those earlier phases, the experience isn't as engaging for them and as powerful as if they had progressed through everything. But not everybody has access to all those phases. So let's talk access on the next slide. We all know that kids spend less time outdoors than the last generation. I think everybody knows that. You know, older adults had a lot more freedom to roam. And so that first article linked here is about is from the UK, but it plays out in the US as well. How in 4 generations, this family went from the great-grandfather being able to walk for 6 miles by himself to go to his favorite fishing hole. And then the grandfather was 1 mile into the woods. The next generation was a half a mile to go on her own to the swimming pool. And now the current son, who's 8, is only allowed to walk on his own to the end of his street, which is 300 yards. And then even students or youth, people who have access to roam, we know from the data that it's just not happening. The average child in the US spends 4 to 7 minutes a day in unstructured outdoor play, compared to over 7 hours with electronic media. And there's all the research that shows all the benefits, and this hour, how much time in nature does a kid really need? This golden hour idea is something that has been promoted, that if every child had 1 hour outdoors in nature every day, there would be enormous health benefits, physical and mental health benefits. So the next slide, it's like, this is an incredible opportunity. And I hope you're all excited about it too, because it's this win-win. If we can add more living elements to our schools, we're directly benefiting the climate and the health of ecosystems, adding biodiversity, sequestering carbon, all those benefits to the planet. And it can be this huge equity achievement that we can provide that access to providing a safe place with caring adults who make you feel safe and get your experiences in nature every day and get all the associated health benefits. And schools can really be this place where every child can build their environmental identity that leads to lifelong stewardship. So that's the connection to this theme and our why. And the next slide is just to dive in and see how what we're gonna do today to explore this topic. So we've already gotten through revisiting our why. And after this, we're going to hear from all of you about what's happening in our schools currently that impact environmental, student, and community health. So we'll have some sharing, district sharing, and then we'll have a guest presentation from an expert who worked with this topic for years down in Encinitas Union School District, Dr. Timothy Baird. We'll bring in partner connections from the community who can help support work of schools in this pillar of health, and another guest speaker will share ways to connect with sustainability, health, and climate action plan efforts across the county for schools. And then we'll have small group district planning time, and that's actually going to be built into the other parts as well. So there'll be some of that along the way. Next slide. So just before we go turn it over to all of you to think about what's happening in your schools, I just wanted to call out have us all think about some of the ways that school systems typically impact environmental, student, and community health. And the next slide has an image. So every campus is a community of learners, and this is an image of depicting what a green school might look like. And I know it's a little bit small, but even small, I'm sure you all can find some green elements. And so if you want to just look in there and add to the chat, thinking about a community of learners is learning through intentional programs and also unintentional, subliminal learning is happening all the time. So what are some of the hidden messages that a campus like this would teach their students and employees just by having what you see in the picture? And go ahead and add that to the chat. Yeah, safe to walk or bike to school. Yeah, there's some big natural lighting windows there. I'm glad you noticed that, Heather. Yep, there's garden space, fruit trees, recycling. There's the solar power and renewable energy happening. Access to spaces gathering outdoors. Yes, they're very lucky to be next to an open space. Outdoor planter boxes, small class sizes. Nice noticings. All right. So let's move on to the next slide. Everything you're saying is definitely connecting to the different programs and efforts that your schools might want to take to advance work in this pillar. And here's another smattering of ones that I know are happening in our schools in this county. Like all these are definitely happening. There's drives for environmental efforts of different kinds. No idling and no plastic campaigns have happened in our schools. There's definitely people working on waste and green transportation and safe routes. Climate-friendly food systems that are connecting the students to being a part of working within that food system, and outdoor learning spaces being put in for regular use in some of our schools, as well as gardens that have existed for years, and green cleaning practices. And again, anytime kids can be connected to these things, then it's helping their health as well. Not just physically, but mentally, knowing that people care and these things are happening. So building that culture of caring. So the next slide has all these items kind of organized around environmental health, what's impacting the environmental health and what's impacting human health. And there's definitely overlap between both. But what we're going to do now is try to gather information from all of you in a way where you can see. So last session, we highlighted Santa Cruz City Schools' awesome facilities work. And this session, we want to have a way for every district that's here to share some of their efforts. And so we're going to do this with a shared Google Doc and have you think about all of these things and share which ones you're doing, which ones you're hoping to do. And the next slide has the process. So we're going to go into district rooms just because some of you have different roles in your district. So you might know of things that are happening that other people don't. Say a quick hi, but get to work. Share your Google Doc, open the Google Doc and decide on a note taker or two and record the health related efforts in your district. Sophia, if you want to click on that Google Doc just to walk people through it a tiny bit. So there's a space for every district. All of those things that we talked about are at the top to remind you if you're trying to think, what were we trying to remember to, and then when you are identifying something your district is doing, try to put it where you would categorize it by how far along your work has advanced. Are you just in the buy-in phase? Do you have some pilot programming happening? And so place that item, whether it's an no idling policy or recycling in a classroom, where on the spectrum of development it is. And then we will come back together and we'll later on, you can ignore the next steps. Later on, we'll come back to this document and have time to read everybody else's entries and also think about next steps. So hope that's clear. You can go back to the slides. So you're going to record that. Don't worry about the next steps. We'll have time in breakouts more later. Are there any questions before we go into breakout groups? And we should put those instructions into the chat for you as well. Let's see. No questions. Aha, I see the breakout room instructions about to go in. And you can choose your own breakout room. If you go under breakout rooms, you'll be able to see your district and community partners. You can work in the part of the table that is for community partners to add your resources, which then the districts will look at in the next session. So if you want to do that just on your own, you can do that, or you could join the community partner room if you want to be with colleagues while you're doing it. And I'm excited to see what everyone's doing. This will be an opportunity for us to leverage the good work that's happening and help accelerate greening across the county. All right, if there are no questions, nobody having trouble, and I'm going to just stop recording for a moment.
I've restarted the recording.
Thank you. Nobody wants to leave their breakout rooms. That's a good sign. All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope that, yes, I'm sorry. That was probably felt very short, but you will get more time in the breakouts later. I hope that time was a good productive start, and we'll return later and have a second round and definitely focus on having some time to read about one another's efforts and make some connections in the document. But before that, we're going to hear a bit more about what this work looks like in practice. So you want to go to the next slide here, Sophia. I'm just thrilled to introduce Dr. Timothy Baird, who's joining us today. He currently serves as the Director of Educational Partnerships for the Green Schools National Network. He's a nationally recognized author and speaker on school innovation, sustainability, and educational leadership. And he also served for 39 years as a public school educator, for 10 of them as superintendent at Encinitas Union High School District in San Diego County. He recently retired from that position. Environmental stewardship and health and wellness have been major pillars of that district's focus for over a decade. So I'm very excited to have him here to share his expertise with us. I'll let you take it away, Tim.
Right, if I
You can unshare.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to share his screen.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm so pleased to see you all here tonight. This is exciting when you get so many educators in a room doing this good work. Let's see if we can get this up and running. So as mentioned, I'm the Director of Educational Partnerships at Green Schools National Network, and really happy to be here tonight. Oh, are you seeing that?
I was thinking this there.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a framework. I know that you guys have discussed numerous frameworks, and we at Green Schools use this framework. I love the framework that's in the book that you've been reading, the CARES framework. But at Green Schools, we look at health, equity, and sustainability as sort of the key things that we call these our spheres of influence. These are where we work, and then how we work are the flower petals outside. So we call those the impact systems, and I'm going to talk about leadership, curriculum and instruction, facilities and operations, and culture and climate as the way you get at this work. And I'm going to try to focus tonight, that's hard for me, but I'm going to try to focus tonight around this idea of health. And what does that look like in a school district? So as a leadership system, we have some power as leaders. We can help define and communicate that vision. We can create teams, we use resources, and ultimately we can measure what's happening and communicate success. So briefly, I'm going to talk about how we do all of those things and how Encinitas does those things. We mentioned the 4 pillars. So these are the 4 areas of focus as we drew the focus of the board and our team and our community around these things. You can see that health and wellness and environmental stewardship are pretty prominently displayed there. That helped us as we started trying to define the work that we do, what it looks like in schools, how it looks like as we communicate to the community. So these were the 4 areas. Within those 4 areas, we further communicated that vision. This is our super tree. You know, this has a lot to do with sustainability, but health and wellness is in this tree as well. And every branch, just so you can see, the branches have different sort of programs or objectives that we worked on throughout the time we were there and continue to work on in Encinitas. So let's start by that idea of bringing people together and creating teams. One of the first things we did in Encinitas was create a district green team, and that was shortly followed by a district wellness team. And I know a lot of districts have these groups working, and I don't know that we were that different, but one difference was that I made sure that when we pulled people together from our schools and our community, that we were going to do something. So the only guarantee I gave them was I will be there, our facilities director will be there, our purchasing agent will be there, our assistant soup will be there, and we're going to get something done. So I didn't walk in with a full plan, we created that. And in that first year, it was pretty modest, but we worked on waste and how do we reduce our waste at our schools, and had some modest successes that then sort of helped drive the work as we move forward. The wellness committee started working on food. And again, I went to all the wellness committee meetings as well. If you're going to ask community to come in and do something, then we need to make sure it gets done. And the best way to do that is to have leaders in the room. Another way that we communicated that this was important and we put resources toward it is we put it in our LCAP. This is the old LCAP one. It's a little blurry, but if you look at goal 3, it talks about green and innovative learning environments and promoting health and wellness. That allowed us to say, hey, dollars go behind this. It's not just us talking about it, but we're going to make it happen. And this is still in the LCAP for Encinitas, and they continue to work on goal number 3 in very innovative ways. I'm going to show you what this looks like as we report out. One of the ways that we really tried to communicate with our community was through video. So here's a quick video that showcases some of this work.
How often do you see a kid kissing their vegetables?
Look at that. We got one. Wow. Let's pass it down.
These San Diego County public school students clearly have more of an emotional investment in produce than most of their peers.
Oh, there you go. Whoa, nicely done.
That's because here at the Encinitas Union School District's Farm Lab, students have a hand in growing the organically certified vegetables they eat for lunch. It's all grown here at the first certified organic farm owned by a school district in the United States.
And so they get connected to their school lunch, which grows right adjacent to where they're learning.
As part of the Dreams approach to education, more than 5,000 kids from all 9 of the district's campuses have the chance to spend at least a day every school year here at this living classroom.
Not a lot of schools get to have that kind of opportunity.
Encinitas students get to learn about next generation science standards, the environment, and nutrition.
When kids have a healthy, full stomach of good food, they are much more attentive in the classroom. I think that they're more focused, and there's a lot of research that supports that.
I love carrots and lettuce.
And the California Lottery loves that it's able to play a small part in supporting the student farm by providing a modest amount of supplemental funding.
Every little piece helps, but really more for the teachers. It is something that can supplement their curriculum, which is huge, and then the benefits are for the kids.
Administrators stress the goal here is not to pull kids out of school and turn them into farmers. A group of local farmers helps with the actual crop production, but kids do get to help harvest and to touch and feel and experience.
We have to allow the kids to love the earth before we ask them to preserve it.
Imagine the possibilities of good nutrition and education.
I heard that quote earlier tonight, and I love the kid with the carrot. So as you look at leadership, you know, we control some of the levers and we try to use them to make things happen. So that's part of it. I want to move on to facilities and operations. When you look at this system, there's lots of things going on here. I'm going to talk a little bit about facilities and grounds, maintenance and cleaning, and purchasing and food service. Not so much about energy, water, and waste because we're focusing on health tonight, but those are important as well. So when we think about facilities, one of the important things for us is to get kids outside. I know I saw it on your agenda. I've seen it in some of the work you guys have been talking about, is that, you know, the healthiest place for kids to learn is outside. So as much as possible, we try to build outdoor classrooms. We try to create sort of, you know, spaces where learning can take place and kids can enjoy fresh sunshine and air and really engage in learning outside of a classroom environment. So all of our schools have outdoor classrooms, have gardens, have just wonderful learning spaces where we can go, and that's a math class, you know, that could be back there, or a writing class or a science class. And we have different kinds of gardens for different purposes. Here's one of our hydroponic gardens, but we use these for everything. So it's something that students at the school feel very comfortable in their school garden. And often we're out there cooking something as well. So love the outdoor space, but if you're taking kids outdoors, then it has to be a safe space outdoors as well. So we focused very heavily in the early years on making sure that we got rid of pesticides and herbicides and put in a fully integrated pest management system, which was not easy to do. Your facility people will tell you that it's one thing to say, hey, we're going to put up, and these are kindergartners helping us here, trying to keep the critters away from their beds. But we're gonna work on something to keep the critters out of the food, but it's not that easy to do. We've done things like this. We tried to use nature to help us. We even brought in feral cats to try to cut down on the rodent population at the farm, and that experiment didn't go well. I don't share that with the elementary grades, but it did not go well. So sorry, I'm gonna hang that up. Anyway, so we've got to make sure that outdoor air quality and pesticides and herbicides, that's got to be good. The indoor quality has to be good too, though. Oops, sorry, Drew, I can't talk. Okay, very persistent. I'm going to turn that off. So we used the Lotus Pro system here as a tool to turn water into a cleaning agent. So we use this in all of our classrooms. It's a really safe way to get at it. The custodians love this tool. They don't have to be breathing bleach the entire time they're cleaning rooms. Just another way to look at it. So sometimes you have to be inside. So try to bring the outside inside as much as you can. We do that through some of our heating and cooling systems. And we love solar tubes. We love big windows. That's natural light. Natural light's better to learn by. It's healthier light. So as much as possible, when we modernize a classroom, we put in solar tubes, we put in big windows. We try to do as much as possible to bring that outside in. And then we also try to make sure that kids have access to clean water all over the place. So we use things like this water system here or this one to give kids access to clean water whenever we can through the facilities there. So moving on to the next system, that'd be the curriculum and instruction system. When we think about curriculum and instruction around health, again, you start with a framework. I'm not going to go through all of this, but we tend to think in Encinitas as the health side is the physical side and the wellness side is the social emotional side. And we spend a lot of time in both areas. And then we have connectors. How do we connect those things? We do it through education, through the arts, sometimes through meditation, sometimes through yoga, sports and fitness. So there's various ways that you bring these things together. One of the things that's very important to us is that we spend a lot of time making sure that our students have modeling of these world-ready traits and skills. Traits are things we think we can influence. You know, kids come to you sometimes with these traits, but we model them, we share stories about it, and we influence them. Skills are things we directly teach though. Those skills are the front of our report card. We give direct feedback on that. We have lessons around all of these things, but skills in particular. And we think that students that hone those skills are not just more productive in the classroom, but in life. Yoga is a big part of what we do in Encinitas. We have been famous and infamous for our yoga program. Our school district was sued a number of years ago, and because we won that lawsuit, school systems across America now have the legal right to have yoga in their schools. And we use this, I always call it PE for the 21st century. It's a way not only to, you know, shape your body and be more flexible and be stronger, but also to give you that calming mindset that allows you to sort of reduce tension and focus. Kids use it all the time. I love this picture. I'm not sure I can do that picture, but I love this picture. And when you start to look at, this is everybody from kindergarten. We were a K-6 system. So everybody from kindergarten through 6th grade does yoga on a regular basis. And they use it out on the playground too. I've seen kids that have been injured that use their breathing exercises to calm down or before a test. This little guy was getting into trouble on the playground. And then he said, hey, once I was starting to lose it, I would start to do my breathing exercises and it really focused me and he wasn't getting into trouble anymore. So we did our own research on this. We also had the University of San Diego do some research for us. All of these resulted from our yoga program. And we also got calls from parents like, what are you guys doing? My daughter's moving her Barbies around and putting them in yoga poses all the time. She's really excited about this yoga program. So we knew it was impacting the home too. They were doing lessons at home too. We also believe in nutrition education. 2/3 of our schools have, we call them nutrition labs. They're kitchens, but a nutrition lab we can have, a kitchen we have to go through more hoops. So kids are cooking, learning about nutrition and really expanding their knowledge of what they may have harvested in their garden at school. They now bring it into the nutrition lab. They learn about the nutritional value and then they learn how to prepare it in a healthy and interesting way. And again, it's all ages of kids. We use our kitchens and our nutrition labs to bring parents together. So we do parent cooking classes, various things come together here. You heard about Farm Lab. I won't go into a lot of detail on Farm Lab, except for to say this is a research and design facility for kids. It happens to have an organic farm on the campus, which we then use to feed our food service program. It also happens to be across the street from a number of nonprofits, and there's a botanic garden right across the street. So we engage with our partners all the time. And kids are out there learning all the time. Here's a group of 6th graders that have created their own salad dressing sourced from the property. It's organic. They have actually not just made the salad dressing, they've created the bottling, the marketing. And if theirs is chosen as the best one by our community members, it'll be showcased at the local YMCA gala dinner that's hosted once a year. I saw your no idling signs. We've had kids that came to us with, we had a class of 5th graders at one of our schools that they were working with some college students, and they did an air quality study around their campus. That resulted in a no idling program at their school, which then was replicated at all 9 schools. So it's a great way to get kids engaged in the learning. The final area is around culture and climate. When you think of culture and climate, how do you bring your community together, your students together? And health is a great way to do it. So we have walking school buses throughout the community, and parents engage with that. They help us with that. They help organize those. And that's one great way to get kids safely to campus, do it in a healthy way, and get parents and community involved so that you create that community feel. Parents also help with before and after school kinds of things. They've supported the work that we've done to bring about scratch cooking in our kitchens and get healthier food into our salad bars. And our farm to school program, which again comes right down the street from our school farm. So when you look at all of the ways that we can engage community and create a food culture, a community sense of our schools, you know, there's health is a great sort of organizing structure for a lot of this work. And all parents want healthy things for their kids. They want their kids to be at a school where they can eat organic, healthy food, where they can get out and exercise, where they can do these kinds of things. So another way we create this culture is that we have some common programs at all schools. We have a health and wellness program with dedicated teachers that help with the yoga and the PE and the nutrition. And we have a track program, which helps with that social emotional side of the house. And they work on some of those skills and traits in social emotional programs. So all of those things are in place. And let me show you one school. This is, I think this was made about 6 years ago. This is a student video showcasing the wellness programs at their school.
At Ocean Knoll, we have more than 5 wellness activities to keep our students going. Let's check these out. First up, the Sage Garden Project. Students go to the Sage Garden once a week to partake in helping the garden grow.
Garden helps us in the wellness program because we are growing fresh food, fresh seasonal food, and you can't get much more local than 50 yards from your classroom.
Up next, another part of the Sage Garden Project, we have the Nutrition Lab.
That the Sage Garden kitchen definitely supplements the wellness at this school because we have the kids harvest the produce from the garden and they bring it in and we immediately start using recipes to use those different vegetables or fruits. Today we're doing pasta. That's because in the following week, we are going to use our lettuce that we have in the garden. They're going to harvest that and the broccoli rabe and a little bit of tomatoes we have left over, and we will make a salad to go with the pasta, and we will eat that, and it'll be really fun. This was a great experience, and I think the students really enjoyed it.
Up next, the Ocean Knoll 1 Acre Farm.
Farm is important to the overall wellness plan and ties into the initiatives for the district by growing food, healthy organic food that goes into the school lunch program at all 9 schools.
The Ocean Knoll Farm is vital to the wellness program at Ocean Knoll Elementary School. One of the main components is that we do grow food here for the school district lunch program. And so all of those great things that you see that occur on the salad bar from time to time. Many of them are grown here at Ocean Knoll Farm.
Getting hungry? Then let's walk over to the Ocean Knoll Lunch Cafeteria. After students are stuffed with nutritious food, they head over to the scrap cart to sort out their trash. After lunch, students can also play different activities. It's time to stretch our bodies after eating and playing outside. In yoga, we relax our mind and bodies with educational and physical activities.
Yoga is very involved with Ocean Knoll and our health and wellness program because it helps our kids get a chance to step away from the classroom academics and have time for themselves, to recenter themselves, to take a breather, to see what it feels like just to be focused on themselves and their physical activity, as well as connecting their breath and calming their mind. Something that they do at least twice a week, and I think that it really helps them go back to class feeling refreshed and ready to learn again.
After or before school, kids can play outside and get some more healthy exercise.
So we'll wrap up with that. It's, you know, one of the things around health and wellness is that it's of interest to our students, it's of interest to our staff, it's of interest to our community. So it's one of those areas where you can really galvanize support for these programs. And I just want to say thank you for inviting me to speak, and hopefully that that tiny URL will get you to this presentation. If not, you're taping this, so you should have it here as well. So with that, I will give the screen back to you.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for sharing your contact information in the presentation. Really appreciate that. We also have funds folks to be able to, we haven't actually started on the book, Tim, because we were looking at the different frameworks, but we have funds to buy some of the books that connect to the presentations we've had here for the group. So I'll follow up with all of you later about that. But thank you very much for your time, for making time for us. Very much appreciate it. And before we head into a break, just wanted to invite people to take a moment to individually reflect. We're not actually going to go into district groups right now. We're going to take a little break and then come back from the break. And so before we do the break though, just take a moment to jot down, what did you hear that you're most excited about from your role in the system that you might want to share with your teammates later? And how could you use some of the information that Tim shared today? And if you want to go to the next slide. Thank you, Sophia. We're going to take a 5-minute break because it's really important to get off of screens. We've been at it an hour. And so it's just going to be a 5-minute break. We'll put up a countdown timer so you can see easily when to come back and we can all be together again. But just so you know, when we return, we're going to have a quick overview of some of the community support people that are a part of this group that could join your district breakout groups to work on any of these areas we've been talking about. And we'll have Tiffany Wise-West from City of Santa Cruz, the Sustainability and Climate Action Manager, share a little bit about how schools can connect with the health and all policies in our region and the climate action plans in the municipalities. And then the rest of the session will mostly be breakout time for you all to work on connecting all the dots. So we'll see you in 5. If you want to start the countdown clock, that'd be great. Again. Welcome back, everybody. So next up, I just wanted to share quickly an overview of some of the amazing partners and resources we have in our community. And we just put a document in the chat with all their contact info. But many of these folks are actually here in these meetings, like right now. So they could join you in your district breakout sessions if you wanted to request it, if you're planning around a certain area. So one resource I wanted to remind districts of is Ecology Action's Bike Smart and Walk Smart programs. A lot of the schools use those already. If you're not using them, that is just a no-brainer for health. And they also worked extensively with districts on safe routes to schools plans several years back. And so those plans take quite a while to implement because they're in partnership with the municipalities. And so the document that went in the chat has the links to those plans in case you've had turnover of your teams and haven't looked at those safe routes to schools plans in a while. Partners for Waste Reduction and Zero Waste programs. So all these folks have been joining these meetings, taking turns, sometimes not everybody from their organization, but the County of Santa Cruz, Zero Waste Program coordinators, our City of Watsonville partner from their environmental programs, and Green Waste Recovery, which serves a lot of the county, are all here to help support waste reduction and zero waste programs. So they're your go-to people. And then Life Lab partners with districts to support garden programs, which we have across the county, and have been doing some really amazing work increasing their partnerships in Pajaro Valley, which we'll actually have them share about at the next session because it ties so much with the curriculum pillar. And there's many more partners, but I just wanted to highlight some of the folks who are here and also very related to health. The next slide, before we introduce our next guest, I just wanted to point out the shifting trends that we have happening to address sustainability and climate readiness in schools beyond our local area. So the US Department of Education released a climate adaptation plan in September of 2021. They've named a climate leader in the Department of Education. So this trend is here to stay and it's only going to increase. So increasing our focus and our investment makes sense. Aspen Institute released a K-12 climate action plan also this past fall. And there's a whole slew of California mandates, policies, and expectations tied to green schools that are gathered nicely together in that document. A lot of them relate to facilities, but there's also health related ones there that all went in the chat. And with that, I would like to introduce, it's my pleasure to bring in one of our very own environmental champions and bring this work more local for you all. Tiffany Wise-West is the Sustainability and Climate Action Manager at the City of Santa Cruz Climate Action Program. And she's here to talk with us today about connecting our schools with city climate action plan efforts and try to help us connect those dots. Tiffany, do you want to take it away? Do you want to share any slides? Or are you just talking? She was here a second ago. Let me see. Did we lose her? Oh no, it looks like we did lose her. I saw her in the participants. just a moment ago. And now she's gone. Well, why don't we change gears then?
Hi, Amity, it's Morgan Bostic. I'm
Morgan.
working with Tiffany. I just wanted to let you know that her computer accidentally shut down. She just texted me. So she said she'll be on in just a minute once it reboots, if that's okay.
Okay, all right. Do you think I can give her, let's give her a little, a moment. We can swap the order of things here and do that after the breakout session. That'll give her some time. Technology trouble is so stressful. I don't want it to be stressful. So,
okay, I'll let her know.
And so what we can do is go ahead and move into our breakout room time. Sophia, if you want to go ahead and show, yes, you read my mind. So what we wanted to do next was go back to the shared Google Doc and give you time to look at what the other districts are doing, because when you were in there that short amount of time, that was probably only enough to think about what you're doing. So go back in with your district team. The single schools could join together, so you're not alone if you want to, into one group. If you want to stay behind, we could do that, or you can see where the other person joined. And community partners, this time join a district or school that you serve. And then all of you look at that doc and see what other districts are doing, who might be able to share tools in common with your work, and add comments on the doc. Actually connect on that document by adding comments and letting people know if you have a tool or you have a question, and then also add next steps to the section of the Google Doc. Does that sound good? Any questions?
That's all posted in the chat as well for everybody.
Oh, thank you. All right, I'm going to open the breakout rooms. Welcome back. I see some of our groups have returned. We don't quite have everyone back yet, so just ask you to be patient while we wait for people to leave their breakout rooms. While we're waiting, if anybody has anything to share from their time planning together, anything what are you most excited about? I don't know if people could hear me.
I think it was a nice activity, Amity, to just actually start to put things in writing instead of verbal. I also thought it was nice to see what other districts, like to scroll up and down and see what similar sized districts might be doing and what we could add or maybe we weren't thinking of. So I thought the activity was a nice activity.
Thanks. Thanks, Chris. Okay, everyone is back now. Welcome back, everybody. I was just inviting anybody to share anything you saw in their connection you made that you were excited about, or a next step that you're looking forward to. Anyone else want to share before we move?
We really want to find out where the compostable trays and utensils are coming from. Believe it or not, we were excited about that.
Exciting stuff. It's true.
Yes.
Yeah, and in fact, there's a lot to be said about that. Like bioplastics are not as good as fiber-based utensils. And so but our green waste people can help with those things. Tell us what will work best with our recycling systems in our county.
Well, and Amity, you know, the thing I'm looking for is to get rid of the shiny snack wrappers. This is like, how many years have I been complaining about that? A lot, right?
Yeah, but you've got your superintendent here to make it happen. It's amazing. And she's
Well,
on fire. So
My kids got her here, so it's
that's
not.
great. Awesome. No, it's great to see your district teams here. All right, we're going to move on to handing over for our guest speaker, who I introduced, Tiffany Wise West, earlier, and then we lost her for a moment. So she's going to share about our county efforts, and then we'll do a wrap up after that.
Thank you so much, Amity, and thanks for pivoting for my benefit. I'm so sorry, everyone. My PC shut down right as I was going to share the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen from my laptop right now. I think you can all see my screen here. Okay, good deal. So, you know, I am going to talk about countywide climate action planning that's going on, but because Amity did mention health in all policies, I do want to connect back to the public health aspect and introduce health in all policies as, and I've spoken to some folks that are on this call about this before, but health in all policies is the city's framework for incorporating public health, sustainability, and equity into our policy making and decision making. And so it is a framework that we keep coming back to lift up these principles. And even though we as a city don't have a public health department, the county does, we recognize that the decisions that the city makes can impact public health. And to that end, you know, kind of our why statement about, well, why are we even doing this then, is that for two reasons. Number one, we have a duty to be intentional about impacts, right? To understand the direct and indirect impacts of our decisions and not to exacerbate harm. And we need to be diligent and intentional about our focus on that. And then secondly, we have a duty to be inclusive, right? That as a democracy, everyone has a voice, and sometimes we need to lift up the voices of the historically underrepresented and underserved. And so that's something we're really working towards as an organization, but really a lot of this work sprung out of our climate action work. A lot of what we're doing spans all these different core conditions of community well-being, and this is a framework, the core conditions that the county and the city share that really fall really nicely under health and all policies. And you can see safe and just community, health and wellness, those as well as many of the other values that I'm sure we all have, but I believe today we're focusing on health. You know, these are areas that we're really working towards. We have goals around each of these, and we have indicator metrics around them. But to shift over to the sustainability focus, and I apologize, I tried to recreate my deck here in the time that you were in the breakout session. I just wanted to give kind of a lay of the land of what's happening countywide on climate action. The Santa Cruz County Climate Action Plan has just started. Their process has just started, and they are on a super quick time horizon. They want to be done by the end of 2022, and that's happening out of the Office of Resiliency Recovery, and there's one other R to that, but it's the ORRR office. The city of Santa Cruz, who I represent, we are in the midst of our climate action plan update. It has a 2030 time horizon, and we're going to be done this summer. So we're more than halfway through our climate action plan project, and I'm going to share a little bit more about that with you in just a moment. Watsonville just adopted an update to their original plan in 2021. It's very ambitious. And Capitola has just adopted, or it adopted its first plan in 2015. And those are all the cities that within the county, including the county, that have climate action plans. And one thing that I'm really happy to report is that we have really amped up our collaboration as a county amongst all of these different jurisdictions. And I'm going to share with you what that means in just a moment. But in general, all of our climate action plan measures, we're all needing to do the same things. We're needing to hit transportation, which for the city of Santa Cruz is 69% of our emissions. For the county, I think it's a bit less, maybe in the 40s, but still it's our emissions source. So we're going to need to be focusing on active transportation, which has that great nexus with improvement of public health, as do many of these things. Electric vehicles and public transportation, we know the use of those, brings down air pollution. Again, another public health co-benefit. We also need to be focusing on electrifying our buildings because our electricity grid keeps getting cleaner and cleaner. And in fact, we'll have 100% renewable energy by 2030. We need to have water efficiency. We can only go so far on conservation within the city and even the county. We already are some of the lowest water users in the state, so there's not a whole heck of a lot more we can squeeze out of conservation, but we can be super efficient with moving water, extracting water, and of course trying to conserve where we can. Waste reduction, which I know has already been mentioned today as a resource, and I know that our waste reduction team hasn't been involved in this group, but we have a really strong outreach team through Leslie O'Malley, our waste reduction manager, and I want to make sure that she gets tuned into this and her assistant because they have a lot of really great programs, including master recycler programs and lots of other stuff, tours that I think many of you probably have come to our landfill and seen. And then lastly, carbon sequestration, which is how do we fix carbon into the ground, into our soils through vegetation and compost application. So really, all of us in the county, this is what we're working on. This is what our climate action plans focus on. Now, there are other things aside from these core emissions reduction measures, right? There's behavior change related to diet, related to consumption and online ordering. So we at the city are definitely putting focus on those, although we have less levers to do so. We have to really rely on education and partners on education in order to do that. But as a county, and in fact, as a Monterey Bay region, we have identified mutual climate priorities. Why do we want to do that? Well, because there is a lot of funding coming from the state and from the federal government with the latest infrastructure bill. And we want to make sure that we're ready to compete as a county, as a region for those funds, because little Santa Cruz can't go up and compete against LA County for these kinds of funds. And because we are all working in the same things, because we all have identified these priorities, we are coordinating to work together on this. And we invite all of you to be part of that. Here's just a snippet from the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The big money, unprecedented funding that's coming down the pike for climate work, for not just local governments, but for schools, for community groups. And one thing that we're hearing, believe it or not, we have state and federal lobbyists. One thing that we're hearing from them is that every application that we're going to make, every proposal that we're going to make has to have a strong climate and a strong equity focus. And so I think that we all in this region are really well primed for that. Unfortunately, this is one of the things that got lost in my technology snafu, but we've done some recent survey work in our region, and we have identified over 24 equity partners that are interested and willing to work on mutual climate priorities countywide. These are groups, everyone from the County Office of Education. Youth definitely are a focal audience for all of us, but also the Amamutsan Land Trust, the Vista Center for the Blind and Hearing Impaired, excuse me, all kinds of groups, from seniors to differently abled to youth to undocumented folks. So that's something I wanted to share with you all, because as you're going out, as you're seeking funding, as you're seeking to put partnerships together across these different areas, you can draw on these folks also and see if there's a role for them in any of your projects. Again, looking to lift up voices who are historically underrepresented and underserved. So I'm sorry that slide didn't get quite filled out. As I mentioned, youth are our focal audience here at the City of Santa Cruz, amongst all of the historically underrepresented groups in these types of planning processes. And I wanted to share with you that we are producing 2, maybe 3 digital storytelling pieces One that focuses on, I don't know if y'all know Tamara Minari and the Youth Action Network. One of our digital story pieces is focusing on Tamara and that group's work. And a second is focusing, or the two others are focusing on one of our equity advisors from UCSC, young adult named Io Banjo. We're focusing on his microgrid work up on campus and work that he's doing down in the Beach Flats, which is one of our frontline communities that's in the front line of climate change, particularly sea level rise and flooding. And then we're also working with some youth who are focused on fair trade. And so those videos, 2 or 3, we're not sure how many are going to come out yet, are going to be done by April 1st. And they're going to be showcased at the Central Coast Climate Collaborative's Monterey Bay meeting on June 2nd. So we invite you all to see those. Maybe we can share them with this group in the future, but we're interested in leveraging technology and digital storytelling pieces to connect the things about climate, like public health benefits, like affordable housing, all the things that we can lift up as kind of a byproduct of our climate action work. And so that really will be the focus. We are taking a lot of different steps to incorporate equity in our Santa Cruz Climate Action Plan. We've had a number of we've had 3 focus groups with youth already. We've had 3 with unsheltered folks and BIPOC folks. And we really are asking the hard questions about how can we make things better. We don't lead with what's your greatest emissions reduction strategy. Instead, we really lead with how can we make walking or biking better. And those are some really important insights that we've gotten. We also developed an equity screening tool that we're applying to all of our different climate actions, and there are about 100 of them that we're considering right now. And I think I'm going to end on that then. I've talked kind of about the countywide and funneled down to the city, but if you live, work, or play in the city of Santa Cruz, you are a stakeholder on our Climate Action Plan 2030 process. And we do have our draft action set that just got released on Friday at this link, resilienttogethersantacruz.consider.it. And we invite you all to go and please share your level of support for these 100 different actions. And feel free to start entering comments where, hey, you got to think about this. And again, we're very interested in the youth perspective on this. I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen and stop there, but there's a little snapshot of what we've got going on countywide, and I'm just so happy to be here today to link up with you all. Morgan Botstick with the city of Santa Cruz has been participating in these groups. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to make it every time we have city council is typically at the same time as these meetings, but we're super happy to be engaged, and please let us know how we can be a resource to you. One other thing that I want to share in the chat is we do have an educational resource page that has really easy, kind of short and sweet little videos on all those different climate action measures I mentioned. So if you need info, you need easy to access info, we got it for you. And so I'm going to drop that in the chat for you, as well as that Resilient Together link where you can go and start chewing on some of the outputs of our process and give us some feedback. So thank you again for your time, everyone.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, for sharing your incredible work and all these opportunities. I'm really excited about that idea of digital storytelling. Like if you're interested in doing digital storytelling, it would be great to have digital storytelling about what schools are doing to green their the system and just build that momentum. So we can connect about that. I'm sure our districts would love help telling success stories as they emerge from these efforts. So thank you again. Thanks for sharing that that resource, and we'll keep in touch for sure. And it's great to have Morgan here. So we're going to wrap up today. Thank you all for staying. These meetings are rough, but yeah, I have good news. The next one will start earlier. But before we give that next meeting date, just take a moment to breathe and record for yourself What are your main takeaways from today? What's a next step you hope to take? I will definitely send all of the materials from today. So if you wrote those things in that shared doc, you'll continue to have access, and I'll follow up with all those links. And next slide, please, is Heather's been putting the feedback form into the chat. We really would love to have feedback on the day, and also it asks about next session, what you would like to see in the next session. If you have stories you want to share about curriculum integration from your district. So we'll be highlighting successful strategies for curriculum integration, and the convening will be on March 29th, starting at 3:30 instead of at 4, so it won't be quite as late. So thank you for the feedback. And then if you can just type in to the chat, the next slide has the directions. One thing you're grateful for so far from this Green Schools Working Group, don't hit send yet. We're going to end with a chatterfall. That's a term I learned recently. Oh, Zoom is going to be the death of me. It's terrible. But anyway, we have these new words, chatterfall. And we'll just hit send all at the same time. When you put them in there, hold on. Let's see. Jennifer jumped the gun. She's still excited about those sporks, getting rid of the sporks. Put in what you're grateful for. Give you a moment. And on 1, 2, 3, we'll add them. Go. Yay, those are so wonderful to see. And thank you all for staying so late. And thank you for your feedback. Look forward to March. Have a good night.
Amity, I put Tiffany's